So happy 2026, everybody. I'm sitting here reading the morning papers or browsing them on my iPad, drinking my morning coffee, and I actually have some good news because after 18 months, it seems Ed Miliband finally has a plan to cut our energy bills, but not for everybody. So if we look back on the last 18 months, the new Labour government that we have hasn't really lived up to its manifesto pledges just yet. If you remember back in the election times, they said, we're going to take £300 off your energy bill. Now, in the last budget, the Chancellor did say that come April 1st, we're going to see a reduction in our energy bills of about £150 on average. And we've already had both Octopus and many of the other energy companies say that they're going to pass those savings directly onto us. So we're on the road to getting our £300 off our energy bills. But finally, Ed Miliband, the Energy Secretary, seems to have come up with a plan. Now, nothing has been officially announced yet, but the government is doing what the government always does, in that they kind of leak it to the papers and the press and then wait and see what the reaction is going to be before they actually make the announcement. So, just in the last couple of days of 2025, we started to see news articles, specifically in the Times, which is one of the government's way of getting this information out there, a slightly more reputable news organisation, if such a thing exists in this day and age. But anyway, during the first 18 months of the new government, our energy bills have stayed high. In fact, they've gone up over that 18-month period. Electricity has remained far more expensive than gas. Promises were made, but nothing really changed for most people's households. And to be honest, people's patience with the government are starting to wear a little bit thin. Now, as I say, we've seen a series of leaks. I'll pop the news articles up on the screen here so that you can see them, and then we'll go through what do they actually say. And obviously, I will put links down in the description below. But looking back, Labour promised £300 off your energy bill. Those promises are now under real strain because a lot of people have said, well, you've had 18 months. You can't keep blaming the old mob for their policies. You've had the chance to do something about it. Public support for green policies seems to have softened a lot because people don't feel like they should be paying more and more for this when the energy companies themselves are making massive profits. And really, the benefits of these green policies seem to be very distant and bordering on theoretical. We're spending billions of pounds to build nuclear power stations that at some point in 25 years from now might bring our energy prices down. People need to see action and they need to see results now. So, government strategy, if you believe what is written in these articles, and based on the source and the journalists involved, I think there could be something to this, seems to have changed. Now, what they've done is they've pivoted from what they've been trying, just not just them, but the previous government for years, and saying, insulate your houses, upgrade the fabric of your house. All of this kind of energy saving tech that needs to go into the house is slow, it's disruptive, and it doesn't show a return for quite a long period of time. The focus now seems to be shifting to solar, batteries, heat pumps. How do we get people to install solar who really could get the biggest benefit from it? And generally, that's people on the lowest incomes. Why solar? Well, to be honest, it's the cheapest form of energy because when you install solar panels on the roof of a house, that house is going to have reduced energy bills for the foreseeable future, possibly for the next 20 to 25 years. It delivers visible savings really, really fast. And to be honest, that's what politicians like because politicians aren't about long term planning. They're about planning for the next election cycle. Remember, a politician's first duty isn't to the people that elected them, it's to get elected again for his party or her party at the next election. So, what they're looking for here are really quick wins. It's not about carbon, it's about energy bills. So what are these articles saying? Well, they're saying there is going to be new grants for solar and battery installs in those that are in social housing, so people who can least afford to install solar onto their houses. But also there's mention of grants that those who are in their own house may be able to take advantage of. Again, not a huge amount of detail here, but an indication that they may be able to get a grant like you would for a heat pump today to install solar and battery on your house. They're also talking about fast tracking balcony or plug-in solar. Now, the UK is one of the last countries in Europe that doesn't allow this. So in Germany, you can go and buy an EcoFlow stream system, and it has a plug on the end of the cable, and you can plug it straight into the wall, and you can feed power into your house that way. Here in the UK, our electrical regulations do not allow that. We have to have an expensive electrician come in, wire it into a fuse spur, put the right RCBOs into the or RCDs into the consumer unit, and follow all of the same regulations that you would for a large rooftop solar system for something that might be feeding 800 watts into your house. They're going to be fast tracking this, and hopefully early in the new year, we'll see those regulations for small solar systems relaxed, just like they have been in Germany, in France, and in other European countries. And hopefully that will drive a massive uplift because these systems are relatively cheap. You can get started for a few £100, like maybe for £1,000, you can get a solar and battery system for your house. And if you live in a flat or an apartment with a balcony, you can hang the panels on the balcony. If you have access to roof space, obviously you can put panels on the roof. But bringing down that entry level cost of solar is going to be a game changer. Now, how is all of this going to be paid for? Well, what they're saying is they're going to move the green levies from the electricity bill to the gas bill. So that means we're still going to be paying for all of this. This is still going to be coming out of all of our bills, but we're going to make gas more expensive to try and encourage people to move to an all-electric lifestyle. And what the government is saying in these news articles is that the plan here is to try and get more people into what they call zero bill homes. Now, don't confuse this with what companies like Octopus are doing. When they talk about zero bill homes, they're talking about new build houses that have been set up in such a way that they have all the tech built in at the beginning. What they're talking about here is taking people who live in existing houses and making those houses efficient enough, have enough solar generation, enough battery storage, so that they can have a net zero bill at the end of the year. Now, the plan includes this levy on gas bills, and it's estimated by the journalists to be about £30 a year. Um, that the cost added onto gas bills there is going to be used to directly reduce the cost of electricity. And the logic behind this is to reduce the spark gap, because a kilowatt hour of electricity is roughly 4 to 4.8 times the price of a kilowatt hour of gas. Now, the two aren't exactly the same, depending on the technology that you use. For instance, if you compare a gas boiler to a heat pump, you might get 1 kilowatt of heat or close to 1 kilowatt of heat for 1 kilowatt of gas. Whereas with a heat pump, you might get 4 kilowatts of heat for 1 kilowatt of gas. But while electricity is so expensive, people are not going to make the move away from gas. So the whole focus of this new levy is to encourage people who today might have a gas boiler, might be in a position to say, we're thinking about a heat pump, but the numbers just don't add up. This will swing that decision the other way. Now, there's a downside to this because there's going to be some winners and some losers with this new policy. So let's talk about who are the winners going to be. Well, obviously, people with solar and batteries today, they're already getting as close as they can to these zero bills homes. But as the cost of electricity comes down, I also suspect that the export prices might come down a little bit with them. But it means that for the energy that they can't generate themselves, the energy that they have to buy, that will be cheaper. So there will be a win there. They will get closer to a zero bill house. Homes with heat pumps already, people who have already taken advantage of the boiler upgrade scheme, they are going to get reduced cost electricity to run their heat pump. Obviously, that will be a win for them. So anyone who lives in a home where most of what you run in your house runs on electricity, and to be honest, that's most of us, we're going to see cuts in our bills. Now, in some rare cases, a few people might reach the net zero or a near zero bill home, but the reality is most people should see a significant reduction in their electricity bill. Okay, so who are the losers in this going to be? Because like all government policies, they're not perfect. They don't address every possible use case, every possible niche. But homes with high gas heating demand, you're going to pay more. Your £30 is probably going to be more like £50 a year added to your bill if you use a lot of gas. People who have poorly insulated homes, and the way that they get over this is that they just use more energy to heat the home, knowing that some of it will leak out. People that live in flats that can't take advantage of balcony solar because maybe they don't have a balcony, they don't have any space that they can put solar panels down on the ground or on the roof, they're going to miss out on this. And renters whose landlords, block even temporary installs, they're going to miss out as well. These people are going to be paying the gas levy, and others are going to be getting an advantage from it. Now, like all government policies, there isn't a version of this that works for every single person. The one thing you can say is there are no gas-only households. Most houses are dual fuel, so they have gas and electricity. So what you might see as a saving on your electricity, you'll see added onto your gas. And if you just leave everything as is, hopefully it will work out as a zero-sum game. It means that you'll pay a bit more for your gas and a little bit less for your electricity, and it will work out. But then if you can transition from move away from your dependence on gas to a whole electric house, then you'll start to see the savings. So I think if this policy goes ahead as it's detailed in the Times, then this doesn't divide rich from poor. This isn't a way of saying, we're going to give more subsidies to the rich. Yes, you will still need to invest some of your own money, whether it be a small amount or a large amount, into solar panels or a heat pump, but they are making grants available to people that live in social housing, people that really can't afford to do this, but who would benefit absolutely the most from cheaper energy bills. But really, it divides households who can't reduce their gas usage or can't move away from it for whatever reason. They're going to end up paying a little bit more for their gas. Those that have access to roofs to be able to put panels on the roof, they're going to be the biggest winners, because if you can put a relatively large solar array on your roof, 4 kilowatts plus, then you're starting to move towards that zero bill house. If you have a balcony, if you have a patio, if you have a small garden around your flat, then you can put some panels up against the wall and you can just run the cables into the house and start feeding power directly into your house. So you'll probably see a much smaller win than somebody with roof access, but it's certainly going to be a win no matter what. But if you don't have any space, you don't have any control over it, you maybe have a landlord that just won't even entertain any of this, then I'm afraid you're probably going to be one of the losers here. So after 18 months, Ed Miliband has finally come up with a plan. And it might work. But I'd love to know what you think. Do you think that putting extra costs onto the gas tariffs will encourage people to use less gas and move to an all-electric lifestyle? Do you think it's a good idea to be implementing new solar grants for social housing? What about balcony solar? If this is something that you maybe would have thought about in the past, if it now becomes legal and easy to do where you can just plug it straight into the wall, would that be enough to encourage you to go and get a system, install it on your balcony? Anyway, let me know what you think in the comments below. Hopefully you found this interesting. I will put links to the articles down below. Unfortunately, it is the Times. They are behind a paywall, but I will do what I can to try and find a link that allows you to read the article. With that, I'm going to sign off because I've got to go find where I put my snow shovel last year, because we're expecting at least a couple of centimetres of snow in the next 24 to 48 hours. And I need to make sure that our driveway is at least accessible. Anyway, with that, let me know what your thoughts are in the comments below. And if I'm lucky, I will see you back here for another video real soon. Take care.